So for the price, the Tudio Solio 1 is almost too good to be true, and for this reason, a lot of people have their reservations about buying one for themselves. They wonder about how long this bike is going to last. What's the longevity? People don't really know because this bike's only been out for about 2 months, which isn't really long enough to gauge how durable this bike is because nobody's really had a chance to truly beat this thing up. But for as long as I've owned this bike, I've tried my best to do just that. And over these last 2 months, I've figured out what I like about this bike and what I don't like so much. So if you're looking to spend 1,300 smackaroons on one of these bad boys, listen up because the information that I'm about to present in this video is very important and it may just cause you to change your mind about the Tudio Solio 1. Now if you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button because it allows me to do more great videos like this. And without further ado, let's get right into it.
Alright, so I'm going to start this video off by stating that this is the most fun bike that I've ever used. Actually, it's probably my most favorite bike that I've ever used, and that's saying a lot because I'm a self-proclaimed e-bike pro and I own a lot of e-bikes. I've owned a lot of e-bikes in the past and I've ridden a lot of e-bikes. And we're talking anything from your average commuter electric bike that you see kind of run-of-the-mill to $4,000 Surons, 60-mile-per-hour enduro e-bikes, or practically electric sport bikes. So believe me, I've ridden all of those bikes. I know what a good bike feels like. And to say that this $1,300 Tudio Solio 1 is one of my favorite bikes out of all of those, it's saying a lot. It's saying a lot. Now, part of that is the price tag. When I'm judging a bike, I'm mostly judging off of what you're getting for the price. Now, would I take a Suron over this bike? 100%. Like, if you were to put the two bikes in front of me, Tudio Solio 1, Suron, and then you were to tell me to pick one, I'd pick the Suron any day, right? But for the price, I would rather have 3 of these than 1 Suron. Ugh. Whew. And these brakes are incredible. Oh my God. There's a kid on a dirt bike over there. Guys, should I go meet up with him? I'm gonna go meet up with some kids. That does not sound good. Oh, it looks like he's stopping at the jumps. Is this a kid or is this a grown man? Let's see. He's got a little pit bike too. Hee hee. Hee. Oh, this thing handles so well. Yo! Hey bro, you can't be riding here. It's illegal.
So the conversation that ensued was really boring, which is why I'm sparing you the details. But what we did do is we bonded over one thing, and this was the Tudio Solio 1. I hit some jumps, the child, he rode the bike for a little bit, and it was a jolly old time.
The suspension is pretty good.
It is really good, yeah. Anyways bro, nice to meet you. I'll see you around. Tudio Solio 1 is handing out the blessings. Probably some of my takeaways from that interaction is it's not just me. It's other people. They think this thing is sick as well. I mean, the brakes and the suspension are gonna jump right out at you as something that's just like really good with this bike. Like, I'm gonna hit the brakes here really quick. Oh my God. Like no other bike is doing that. Stock? Are you kidding me? Like, let's hit these brakes again. Whew. Oh, dude, you cannot make this shit up. It's actually insane how good these brakes are. And then also what that kid was mentioning, he's a dirt bike kid. He knows. I mean, he's got a little pit bike himself. Suspension. This bike's suspension is incredible. Like, you know, this is a really rough trail right here. Most of my other e-bikes, you know, they'd be chattering and clattering all over the place. I wouldn't be able to really, you know, use the full throttle. But you can see it just eats this up. No problem. And that's kind of like what the Tudio Solio 1 can do for you. This bike really is just a great handling and feeling bike. I can't say that I would be able to jump a lot of my other bikes. And I was able to jump this bike no problem. So just fantastic. Like, I have so much to rant about with this bike in terms of not only performance, but just the features that it has, which just makes it so smooth, so incredibly smooth. The sizing of the bike, it's pretty small, but I'm like closing in on 6'3", and I'm still able to whip it around no problem. Again, like I said, I like kind of having a bike that's sort of pocket sized that I can throw into the back of my car and just take wherever and whip it around. Overall, I live in a pretty urban area. So, you know, having a small bike like this, like, nobody ever bothers you, nobody cares. It's so low profile that it's just like, it's nobody's business unless somebody's like really nosy. So brakes, suspension, fantastic. I love these little wheels, not so much for their performance because I feel like they could be bigger to, you know, kind of help you roll over sticks and everything a little bit better, but I like how they look. I like small wheels, not performance-wise, but looks-wise. I like the look of them. Now, another thing I like about this bike is, if you take a look at the seat here, it unscrews with just one screw. It's so intuitive. A lot of other bike companies will you know, have like 10 different screws involved in taking off the seat. This is just one. It makes things so easy for you. Anyways, is that it? Is that like all the good things I have to say about this bike? Ooh. So, well, all of these great features, like having these really nice brakes and having that great suspension and sort of having that great weight balance with this bike, what it leads to is just excellent handling. I can't say with a lot of bikes you would be able to sort of rip it like you can with this bike. I feel confident using all of the power of this bike because it handles so well. Now that I've talked about why I like this bike, I think it's time I talk about the cons of this bike. And there's a few. Maybe they're deal breakers for you, maybe not, but they're there. They're definitely prevalent, right? We gotta keep in mind, like, they're fitting so many great features into this bike for a very budget price. So eventually, you know, something's gonna be there where it's like, all right, this might not be the best. And I think one of those is gonna be the battery life. So with the battery life, you probably get about 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours before the battery runs out. And then on top of that, they give you a very slow charger with that battery to charge it back up, right? So low battery life, you get a small charger with this bike, so it's gonna take you like 8 hours to charge that small battery back up. So yeah, if you wanna get this bike and you're you know, thinking, oh, you know, I wanna go on like a long trip with it or whatever, like, maybe think otherwise because the battery life is not very good. Now, issue number 2 that I have with this bike is the quality of the metal that makes up the frame. It's very low quality. I mean, this metal is like Chinesium, I guess you can say. Like, a lot of the bolts, like, let's say you want to do some work on this bike and you're taking it apart, you will end up stripping a bolt. Like, that's just how it is, right? And it's not because you're stripping the bolt because, you know, you're a shitty mechanic. It's just because the metal that makes up this bike is very cheap. Especially if you're removing bolts from this thing or screwing things in or doing work to it, there is an opportunity that presents itself to actually end up stripping some of the drill holes for some of these bolts. Like, I actually stripped a couple of these because I removed the controller for a previous video. So con number 3 for me is going to be waterproofing. I'm sure the components can handle, you know, a splash of water or some puddles and stuff, but as you can see, this frame is just very open. So like, if you're going through puddles and stuff, like, water and mud is just going to get into the inside of this frame. Like, you can see we have this big old gap right here, so they need to make like a gap cover here. I mean, you got gaps so like mud and dirt can get into the motor and everything. This frame is just overall very open. So it presents an issue there when it comes to, you know, riding this thing in the mud and in the dirt and in the rain and everything. A lot of bikes are more sealed than this. This bike is not very sealed. So especially in future models, I would hope that Tudio can add just some better, kind of more well-fitting parts, or maybe like some side panels that seal this bike up. Other than that, like, I have no issues with this bike, really. It handles super well, it's holding up super well, and I'll keep you guys updated if I do find any issues with it. But so far, Tudio, you've done a great job. And yeah, if you're on edge about getting this bike, I wouldn't be. For the price, it's really is worth it.
So yeah, guys, if you enjoyed that video, please subscribe. It's super easy, it's free, and it helps my channel out massively and allows me to do more great videos like this. On top of that, if you guys want to see any more videos on the Tudio Solio 1, make sure to go ahead and leave a nice comment down below. I read all of the comments, and I will make sure to keep your suggestions in mind. And while you're at it, don't forget to drop a follow on the channel's Instagram page. That's where you can see all of the behind the scenes of what goes on with this channel. Without further ado, watch this jump.